like a data set that is not normalized. Like, this happens a lot with like take-home exams, right? Because you'll just get one CSV file, and it's not like they separate it out into like, let me move over here. Like they separate it out into like the customers table and the companies table. They'll just give you one big CSV file, and they'll repeat the information, right? And if you think about it, like that's what they do here. If we look at let's place this name in SQL. It's categories. Select all from, and we'll do customers. Okay, and then let's do that here. Okay, so if you look at the columns here, right, this is like how we receive the data. So we have the customer ID, we have the company name, right? We have the contact title, right? We have the address, the city, the country, right? The fax. So you can almost start to get a sense. It's like, all right, like fax machine, like look how many people have fax machines. This is probably company data mixed in here, right? Like the country, the phone number, the fax, the city, the address. These, I believe, we can, but we're going to assume, I probably checked it previously, and we could check this, right, to make sure, to see, is this customer data or is this company data? How do we do that, right? You would probably want to look for like people of this company, right, or of a few companies, and see how does the data vary? If the address is the same for everyone in the same company, well, then we know that it's the company address, right, and not an individual's address. All right. So, a lot of this data, like the contact title, maybe that's on the person. It probably is, I guess, on the person. Depends how exactly you end up structuring the tables. But it turns out, I believe, a lot of this data is really related to a company and not to a customer. And like I said, this is pretty typical. You'd get like a CSV file that has really the company and customer data both just mixed in there. And it's your job to separate it out. So it's not going to be as simple. Like we just do, okay, well, let's then select just this information, like maybe the customer ID and the contact name from customers. And now we'll select just the relevant data for the company, right? So maybe that would be the company name. And let's start with like the address and city. Address, city, right? And this would be like, and we can do this, postal code, country, phone. Postal code, country, phone. All right. So if we select this, you can think, well, this is actually going to represent our company. And maybe we demark that by saying like with company as parentheses, and then put our select statement here. I have to be careful to remove the semicolon because otherwise that will end the SQL statement before it's complete, right? So remove the semicolon and then do select all from, let's call this companies. Right, just so we can see the result here. Okay, now let's run this. And we can see these are our companies, right? Now, this is actually not correct. Like this is maybe close, but this is not good enough. The reason why is because you have to think about like the relationships, all right? Like how many times, generally in a company table, what we want is each company just shows up once. But in this case, what we have is every time we have a customer of that company, right, we're going to have the company show up again. Why? Because here's our customers table. Here's our companies table, right? What's the relationship between these, right? We should all know a company probably has many customers, okay? So when we got a CSV file of our customers, right, and we have, Bob here, and he works for Disney. And then we have Sam. When we originally got that, he might have also worked for Disney, right? So now when we separate this out, we're going to get multiple Disneys down here. And they're each going to have the same address. Right? So all this information is going to be repeated. So what we need to do is normalize it. And this is, like I said, this is pretty typical. This happens a lot, where you'll be getting like this flat file, and then you'll need to like separate it out and remove the duplication. You all follow this so far, right? When we're separating out the tables, it's not enough just to like select the columns. Your brain has to keep working and think about what is the relationship between these tables. And with a like one to many, well, now the dimensions are off, where we have many, multiple companies listed multiple times, one for each of the related customers. That's the issue. Okay, so the way to solve this is essentially you just group by. You find let's see how many there are currently. And we could see it too if we do like count star. We can see how many companies there are. If we want to see if there's any repeats, what can we do? Select count star from companies, group by. And what would we probably, like of these columns, what do you think we would group by to see if a company is listed multiple times? Right, like the company name. Okay? And let's see. And let's say order by amount. Descending, right? My bad. Oh, well, they did a good job, but they shouldn't have. All right, so it looks like we don't have that problem, but like you oftentimes would. So we're going to pretend we have that issue. So, okay, how do we deal with this? Well, it's the same thing. We want to group by the company name, right? And if we do that, then we'll only have one company, right, per name, because we're going to be condensing it. The issue is, if we just do this will probably break. Let's take a look. Okay. So it says the company's address in the select clause is neither an aggregate nor in the group by clause, right? Like we're not grouping. If it would be okay if we're doing like company name here, because that's what we're grouping by. It also would be okay if we're like taking the average somehow of an address, right? Because that would only give us one value per company, right? But in this case, we're not doing either, all right? So we need some sort of aggregate here. And really, honestly, the general pattern, even though it doesn't totally matter, the general pattern, I believe, is to put the group by here. So let's do that. We'll get the same error message. All right, so the same issue. So the issue is, right, we need some sort of aggregate here. The typical pattern is to just take the max, right? If I take the max of the address, and these are all the same, then it doesn't really matter. You're just selecting one of them, And we'll do the same thing here. And it's taking the max, I guess, alphabetically, but if they're all the same, it'll just give us one of them. So you can do this. And now let's run it. All right, and you see that? And then you would, again, we want these things to be worded better. So it'd be like max address as address. Max city, max postal code, sure. Max country as country. So we're giving each of these an alias, that's it. Max phone. Now, if we do this, these are looking good. Sorry about that. Okay, so what did we do? We selected the columns that were relevant for companies, right? Because we started with this issue where we have customers, but we have this mix of customer info and company info. So we started by selecting just the columns relevant. Then we said we have that issue where actually like a company probably has multiple customers, right? So we need to We don't want in our companies, we don't want the same company listed multiple times. So you need to find a column to basically unique them by, right? And that for us, that's the company name. And really we use the group by to kind of like do our unique. And then you do a combination of that with just take the max. Okay. Like I said, like when you get an exam or a take home, you should like they will not always make it obvious what is related to what, like what columns are related to which normalized table. So the way to figure it out is see like is there the same address across every time we see this company, or does that differ? Right? If it differs, it's unique to the customer, not unique to the company. Okay, so when we have this going, we can go to DBT, and you can see I did this here. I did not, I just said with source as, select the source, RDS customers. You can see I'm listing the company name as the company ID. We're gonna adapt that a bit later. And then we're selecting from the source. The source is just that same table. And then we're listing these things, and really what we'll do here is what we just stated, right? We're going to do max of each of them. And then from source, group by what we want to unique by, which is the company name. Okay, let's preview it. And then finally we have a select star from rename down here. Okay, we need to give ourselves a alias for each of these. So this will just change the column names. Okay, this is looking pretty good. So you can see this is currently our company ID. We're just using the name. We are going to want to adapt that a little bit, right? There's a couple things we should do here. The first thing we should do is one, like these spaces. It's not good to select on a space. It's pretty tricky. So instead we want to replace the spaces with hyphens. And the other thing we probably want to do is lowercase all these, just so it's easier. This way we don't have to worry about being case sensitive and missing stuff based on that. So we can say select company name. Let's do select, and I like doing this in pieces. Select lower company name. Just make sure that works. We'll just assume it works. And then from there, the next thing we want to do is replace the spaces with hyphens. So replace the spaces with a hyphen. Let's preview that. I might not have saved it. Let's see. Yeah, I think I may not have. Select, replace, lower. I think that's fine. Let's just preview it again. Okay, there we go. So you see that now there's with hyphens. And then finally, here's kind of the last thing. We're going to be getting, we have this company information, but you have to remember, like, this data is coming, from one source, right? This is our, we have this company data. Let's actually erase all this. Okay, so we have this, company data. But really, it's coming from RDS. And, we're going to have, ideally, data that, as you kind of mentioned before, also comes from our SaaS, software pieces, whatever they're called, our SaaS services. So that's also going to have, maybe HubSpot, right? And that's also going to have stuff. And so that would be, companies, but this will be HubSpot. So when we get a record, it's nice if I get this record and I know where this information's coming from, okay, as much as possible. And right now, if we just use the word, if we get the same piece of data and we use the name, well, that name is going to be the same regardless of if it comes from HubSpot or if it comes from RDS, Okay, so we want to be able to, like, in the identifier, be like, yeah, this is we're uniquing it by the name. Should only be one name, one like company per data source. But once we combine data sources, now we're back to getting repeats. So what we can do and what we should do is say, hey, this company record came from this data source. So the way that we'll do that is not so bad. All we have to do is use concat. Okay, and we'll just concat RDS hyphen on to this. So this way, each of these company IDs will be prepended with RDS hyphen. Save it, preview it. Okay, right, you see that here? Cool. So that looks good. We have the companies, customers currently. If you look at them, we should do the same thing here. Lowercase it, just make it consistent. Lowercase it, make it RDS hyphen. Make sure that looks good. And then let's run this for now. So we can just do dbt run. I hope things work. Okay. It's always good to say, like, I don't know, some sort of prayer. Big money. That's what comes to mind to me. Big money, big money. Okay. So this worked. And then here's so what that did, of course, is now we have multiple tables, right, in Snowflake. So when you do the dbt run, just remember, right, like this, if you look at details, you can see what it's doing. It's, right, this is, and I like to look at this, right? So it's creating dbt Jeff stage RDS companies, all right? And now we should be able to go to Snowflake, go to Northwind. I forget if it's in Northwings. Well, we can look at it. I guess it's not. dbt Jeff. Stages, views. This is it. Okay. So here's our stage RDS companies, stage RDS customers, stage RDS suppliers. Again, these names here come because of the file name, nothing else. All right. So if you change the file name, as you can see, I did. We could probably delete these, right? These are duplicates. Anyway, so we have these three. Here's one last step we need to do. Again, you want to think about the relationship between customers and companies, right? A company has many customers, and a customer belongs to a company, right? So if I want to associate these two, where does the foreign key go? The foreign key always goes on the belongs to, right? A customer belongs to a company. That means the company ID should be on the customer's table. The issue is that this company ID is not in the customers. Like, we generated this, right? We just created this company ID column. We created it here. This is the company ID. So how are we going to get that over here? We should all know, right? By joining it. So we need to join my companies table. We'll just use this for now. And how do we link up the customers? Right? Well, we have, sorry about that. This is customer ID. How do we link up the customers with the companies? Well, in this customers table, if you think about this customers table that we start with, can I show you it? It's under Fivetran something. It's Postgres Northwinds. So in this customers table, you can see what we have is the company name, right? And that should link up to what we have here, my company name over here. Here I call it just name, okay? So I should be able to join this thing dot name on the customers, right? That original table dot company name, and that will link up the corresponding company row with the customer, with that customer's company. So we join this thing on, say, this dot name equals, and sorry for the mess, we'll clean this up later, equals this thing, customers dot company name. So now we're linking together the information from this table, Stage RDS companies, and that allows us, ideally, to be able to pull the company ID. Let's see if that's good. Broke it, unexpected, company ID, does not like this. As name, I wonder, syntax error line 1. Let's see the compile. Does it show us? Let's see. Okay, select customers, split part, okay, the content, first name, last name, country, company ID from customers. Maybe I have to specify, this should be here. Maybe I have to specify like where it came from, but I don't know. Maybe I didn't save it. Say as company ID from customer, join this, and then select all from renamed, which is this. All right, let's try it. Okay, for whatever reason that worked. So here's our company ID right here. Okay. That now we are linking, right? A customer belongs to a company. Here's the foreign key. We want to clean, this is a mess, right? We want to clean this up. How do we do that? Remember, with DBT, we want to like define our dependencies up top. These are just like import statements. So here we're saying we're coming from RDS customers. We can't use, this is not a source. Like this Fivetran stage RDS companies coming in, this is not a source table, right? It's generated by DBT. Our source tables are only kind of like the ingredients that we're starting with. So our source table would be something coming from here. But in this case, we're joining something, or a view that we generated from DBT. So we can't use that source function. We'll just hard code it, and that'll be good enough for now. And later on, I'll show you something another way. So it would be companies as, and then we'll just do select all from this. Okay. And then now we can replace, every time we see this, we can replace with companies. Right. So this will be companies, and this will be also join companies on companies.name equals customers.company name. Okay, and again, that companies just comes from here. So we can save this, preview it. Breaks unexpected, renamed, select all from renamed, companies as, oh, I need a comma here. So companies as this, and then I have the next CTE, so I need a comma there. Let's save it, now we should be good. Preview it. All right, this looks nice. So let's run it, right? If so far all we've done is preview it. So if you go to something like Snowflake, we haven't actually like written the changes, right? We haven't actually executed like a Snowflake statement against our database. So what we still need to do is dbt run, and you can do the dash dash select stage RDS customers, I believe. If you want, or you can just do dbt run. And that will also work. Did I do this right? Okay, that worked. So that should be good. Like what have we achieved? Okay, the first thing we did, or one thing we did, probably the easiest thing is get the IDs working correctly. Just like format them. So they're just a unique attribute, oftentimes like the name of something, that probably combined first and last. You want to just format it, lowercase it, prepend it with the data source, remove the spaces, okay, replace them with hyphens. The other thing we did was, we considered the dimension of the data and we noticed that it was off here because a company has many customers. So we need to make sure we only have one company. Each company is listed once. So we needed to unique it. We did that with the group by. And then the last thing we did was we needed to add in, right? We need to associate a customer with a company, and a customer belongs to a company, and therefore we need to get the company ID from this table, this new table, and that meant joining it on, right, where the company's name from our new table equals the customer's company name, right? That will link up the proper row, and then we can just select that company ID. Okay, questions about this? The last thing you can do, I might as well just tell it to you now. People call it, the documentation DBT calls this the most important DBT function. It's called ref. And basically remember, we can't reference this as a source, okay? So instead what you do is you just reference the file name. And the way you do that is you use Jinja, again, that's the double brackets, and that's this ref function. And now you just do the name of the file. So it'll be stage RDS companies. Save it. And now look, you can see immediately it got the lineage more interesting, right? And it's correct because our company's data all comes from this source, from RDS customers, where we pulled that out. And then these two sources, right? This one points to stage RDS customers and this one, right? These are the two ingredients that make up this customers. And you can, it actually shouldn't change anything, but we can do dbt run again. Okay, so that's that. I'll let you guys read about views, and then we can talk about it later if you want. But they're definitely worth knowing. I just feel like I've talked long enough, and you guys can understand these fine. All right, questions about what we covered. This is pretty, you're going to be working with this the rest of the time that we work with DBT. Yeah, Serge.
I was just wondering, when you're joining the companies, so are you joining on the data in the staging of companies that you already transformed?
Yes.
On something that is not transformed yet? The companies that name.
Right.
Look like.
Yeah, the reason why is because you have to think about what column we want. We want to get, our whole goal is we need to link the company ID. Where does the company ID come from? Right here, right from this table. So we have to take the data from this, join this table with our customers table so we can get the ID. The way to do that, like the attribute I know, right? Currently we don't have a company ID in our original data. So what I need to do is join it on the name, right? Because that's a link, right? If I have the customer's company name and I have the company's company name, they are the same. Cool. So I join these together on that and I get the company ID. Good question. Yeah, other questions? Yeah. I mean, the other thing, just notice what I did. A couple of things to like point out. Notice I'm pressing preview like all the time, right? That's your shift return in Colab. The other thing is go to Snowflake. Like the error messages are better here lots of times. Uh, and it's more direct. You're reducing the amount of things that can go wrong, right? We're removing one extra technology. So if the query is not working somehow, the only thing that wouldn't work in Snowflake is the Jinja, right? Is this stuff in these brackets. But everything here, you can just copy and paste it into Snowflake and try it here, and then move it back into DBT after you get it working. Okay, so I recommend, maybe even if you don't mess up, just do that so that you get into that habit. Because, like I said, like a main part of development is just like, how do you debug when things get tricky? You know? So this is a good technique for that. Yeah, Serge.
Can you please say again why you have to reference the source? Like how you added the RDS dash thing.
Are you talking about here? Here?
Yes, like
Okay.
what should you do? Yeah.
Yeah, it's not totally clear. Yeah, well, let me put it here's a good way to think about it. Okay. Eventually, we're going to want to, let's say we have this company data, and let's say HubSpot has, like we have maybe what they're, are they like a high purchaser, like what people might call like a qualified lead, meaning like we think these guys are going to buy. So maybe you have that in HubSpot, okay? And maybe both of these have, like the facts or something like that, the facts data. But this one actually has like the better, like I trust this data better than that one. What we want to do, like when we kind of merge this, what we might want to do is like precedence maybe this data for some columns over this one. It's not. So this might not be the best example, but so because of that, it's important to know like where this data came from, which information came from which record. Okay, because I'm going to have the same company info from both people, and maybe I'm going to preference this one over that one for something, right? Like I want to know, okay, these two things came from two different sources, and this one came from this RDS source, So things like that. It's just useful to track where the data came from. Cool. All right, let me put you